if we are okay. We can go live. All right. Now, and let me share my screen. All right. So, let's see. Anybody here yet? Just one person listening to us right now. More should come in a little bit. If you are tuning in and you're wondering, wait, what's this other guy on the Tongues and Runes stream, and why does George have a an Audacity window pulled up? Hi, Jake. Hi, Tabby. Well, then you didn't see my posts about this today. I decided, it's kind of last minute, to do, I guess this is going to be my end of year special. I'm doing something different, stopping development on Ndugaka proper, and instead I brought Logan Kearsley on. Say hi, Logan.
Hi.
Who I interviewed him on Conlangery. If you go back into the audio archives back a few, then we talked about whistle languages, and I'd been thinking about, I'm making a language for dragons. It's mainly going to be, my ultimate use is going to be for like incantations for spellcasters, but it still is the language of dragons. And dragons roar. So just think about this situation. So you are wandering in a dragon's territory, and you see dragons up in the sky, and you hear them roaring. And there's a dragonborn in your party who hears this and understands what's being said, and he relays what the dragons are saying to the wizard in Draconic, and both of them are telling your party that they're tracking you, they're following you, and at some point the dragonborn stops and he says, "Get ready, take cover," because he doesn't have time to translate what he heard, but it is whatever, and we're going to figure out how this is done in this register today. But it was grapipinge, meaning go down and kill them, meaning it's the directional for down and killing them. So it's so, and before he can say anything, but before he can actually say that to the party, 3 juvenile dragons are descending upon you. So wouldn't that be cool? And wouldn't it be cool if we had a way to do that and have the dragon's roar be related to Ndugaka sounds, in the same way that in a lot of human languages, you have a whistle register where people whistle in order to convey messages over long distances, and it's just an encoding of their spoken language. So that's what we're going to work on today, and I'm going to give it to Logan to help me. I have made this little file. What I did was I took a lion roar. I just pulled the lion roar off of Wikipedia. It's a CC BY, so you can go to Wikipedia and find what that is. I'll link it in the show notes. And then I just slowed it down so that it's a little bit lower pitch and a little bit more menacing. So we're going to work on manipulating that sound in order to get an idea of what that sounds like. And maybe I will try a little bit of imitation myself in order to work on this. Okay. So, Logan, where do you want to start?
Well, just FYI, when you just played that, it did not come through for me. So I don't know if it came through on the stream or
not. Did people hear it on stream? When I assume that when I share things on my when I share my screen, the audio comes through. Did you guys hear that? Well, if that's not working,
no response.
We just have a couple of people on right now, and there is a delay. You didn't hear it clearly? Maybe if I turn up my volume. I don't want to turn up my volume too much because I don't want to blow out my own ears, but you hear that better? I can hear somebody playing in the background.
Oh, yeah. I should warn you. I do have a almost 2-year-old who doesn't want to be separated from Daddy right now. So hopefully he isn't too distracting with background noise and such. But yeah, let me know if he is, and I'll mute myself temporarily or something.
Oh, you didn't hear? Okay. Well, you know what? I can quickly let me export this. I have another way that I can let you guys hear as we go. I hear the Bluey theme.
I'll turn that down. Don't want to get copyright strike for that. All right, we shouldn't be hearing Bluey now.
Yeah, let me see where it's in. It's in this folder. Never mind that I misspelled the name of my own language. So I can put this in the media folder, and then you can hear the basic one. I'll just export as we get something done, and that way people can hear it.
Oh, there we go. Now I heard it.
Yeah, I don't know why they're screaming suddenly in the background. That wasn't there when I was listening to it before. So hopefully that's not too distracting. That's an issue.
Thematically appropriate.
Well, that's an issue with these sounds though, because well, maybe I'll just like cut off the tail end a little bit so that we don't have that distracting us, because we just need the roar. It's a real lion roar taken at a zoo. I considered also crocodile or alligator bellows for a more reptilian sound, but it's harder to get clean recordings of those. The environment's not good, and then you hear the sound of water splashing sometimes, and also the pulsating quality is nice, but I don't know if it works very well with what we're going to be doing. So anyway, that's my contribution so far. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to work up, and maybe I will pull up the phonology.
Yeah, that would be good to have that on screen.
Yeah, this is a draft of the phonology for the grammar, just not complete, but I have the charts here. So here's all the consonants. And you know, if you've been following the stream for a while, you know this because we did work this out on episode 0, actually. And here's we've got the vowels here. Phonotactics. Phonotactics is more complex than I thought it was actually. And then Something that might be important for you, Logan, is that we
Yep.
have this. Um, I'm going to call them light and dark vowels for now. That was suggested to be by a patron, but that's subject to
Yep.
change. It's actually historically ATR harmony, but as you can see, some sound changes kind of screwed up the pairings because somehow has the lax counterpart and has the lax counterpart ah because of a lowering thing that happened. So but I'll let you sort of take it away, but my assumption is that you might want to use that in order to reduce the number of vowel distinctions. Is that right?
Maybe. So yeah, I did take a look at the vowel harmony stuff ahead of time, and it kind of makes me think of Turkish whistling, because Turkish also has vowel harmony, and yeah, um, you can get some more space by pretending that you've got half as many vowels by just collapsing the harmonic pairs. But after doing that, it's not it is not entirely clear to me whether that will end up, like, once we do the transposition into single formant space. I'm not entirely sure if that'll be like the most relevant dimension of collapse, because so we established that there's no lexical tone
Right.
in this language.
Yeah. We don't need any
And
tone.
so, yeah. So if we're going with like adapting human patterns as much as possible, then the vowels are basically going to follow the contours of the F2 formant,
Okay.
subject to additional systematization. So like if you take a spectrograph of speech and of modal speech, and then a spectrograph of whistled speech, the single formant of the whistled speech isn't going to exactly follow the vowel formants of the modal speech. Oh dear, we got a crying baby now. I don't know what's up with him. Come here, snuggle. Snuggle and stop crying. You can say hello to the internet people while I talk about vowels. But the system will be based on approximating that F2 formant and then shifting it to fit into new boxes.
Okay.
So and for everybody who does not know already, the F2 formant basically corresponds to frontness and backness.
Yeah, I was going
Which it
to mention that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, because like vertical vowel systems are a thing and horizontal vowel systems are not a thing, until you get to whistling registers, and then like everything is about the horizontal forward and back movement.
Now, I
So oh,
I do want to stop for a second here in that. So we're using the principles um of whistle languages, which a whistle is about as close as a human mouth can do to a pure sine wave. So that's why you have to reduce everything down. Is it any different from roaring? Because I think
yes.
when an animal roars, they can put their tongue position in different places. So would it be
Hmm.
possible to potentially just go with having all the vowels? I can't necessarily do that with the manipulation tool with Audacity. I might be able to do it in Prot, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Um, well, we're working with fantasy dragons anyway, so we can kind of do whatever we want. But yeah, that was another thing that I was thinking about, is that roaring is not bioacoustically identical to whistling.
Hmm.
And so we may actually be able to get more, we may be able to preserve more distinctions,
Hmm.
by allowing for actual like sound quality changes in the roar that you don't get in whistles, which might actually surprise some people, because like it is possible to do trilled whistles. It's possible to whistle in multiple different ways with different
Okay.
parts of your mouth that have slightly different sounds, but natural whistle registers just don't bother to make use of that. Um,
Okay.
it's you can whistle however you want, and whichever way you whistle, you just track the single formant. But dragons don't have to work that way. We can, if we decide that there aren't enough contrasts, um, in something that's based purely on a human whistling model, then I'm thinking we can step back and say, okay, well, where do we want to reintroduce some contrasts, um, and play around with that, and
Hmm.
declare that because it's a roar, they're actually doing this weird thing with their dragon voice that allows them to keep some extra distinctions.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
yeah. I think what we'll say is we'll start out just doing the basing on off of whistles with the idea that they're not going to be changing their tongue position so much in as a way to get out as much sound as possible. Maybe they have to open their mouths
mhm,
wide in order to get the range of sound that they want, and then we can
yeah,
backpedal on that if we want to try to add extra formants and get the vowels done better. Does that work?
right. Yep, that works.
Yeah.
And actually, I think on the note of getting as much sound out as possible, um, it's worth comparing the communication distances of human whistle registers and animal roars, because like a lion roar, which is what you've got for the sample there, um, is supposed to be audible from up to 5 miles, and human whistle registers like are used for enabling communication up to 200, 300 meters,
Okay, so
or
it's not.
maybe a kilometer across a valley. So like they are used to facilitate long distance communication in difficult terrain, but not 5 miles long distance like
Yeah.
elephants bellowing or lions roaring. So if dragons, which are supposed to be solitary creatures with huge territories that they defend, are wanting to communicate over 20, 30 miles at a time to the because that's as close as they want to get to their nearest neighbor, yeah, they might want to just maximize that volume and not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
deal
Five
with any
five
costs.
miles. Yeah, it's definitely good that we know that roars can carry that far. And
Mhm.
we can say dragons are bigger and they're magical. Maybe they can carry even further, like 20 miles or something like that,
Yeah,
especially since they're up high in the air. Um, but yeah, I mean, they have wide ranges and they just have a need to communicate while they're flying around their range too. Um,
yep,
so that works out. So
yeah,
let's actually get started. So
yeah. So
yeah,
getting back to the vowels then. Um, my first instinct looking at the vowel chart is to just go with 3 vowel categories and
okay,
have a high front, a mid, and a low back category, which, like, yes, it will end up collapsing the harmony distinctions, but
and a little
mainly
more
it's
than
just
that.
looking at the chart. And yeah, it goes from, instead of going from 8 to 4, it goes from 8 all the way down to 3. But we could play with that a little bit. 4 vowels uh, is reasonable. Well, I should say it's not unreasonable. There are human registers that have 4 vowel loci in the frequency space.
Okay,
Um, if we wanted to go more than that with a single formant, they're magical dragons. Maybe they have better pitch discrimination than humans do, and they can
Yeah.
handle seven different pitch levels. That I would not want to be a human mage trying to learn that.
Yeah.
But
That's well, I did say that the Dragonborn was the person who could
yes,
understand
you
it for a
did.
reason, because I think like wizards will know Ndugaka, they will know like the magical dialect of it, but they're
Mhm.
not necessarily outgoing and communicating but with dragons by roaring.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, so let's actually get started with that. I will
yeah. So do you want to go with 3, or do we want to start with 4 based on the harmony classes?
okay, well, I don't know what do people in the chat think. Let's ask the chat. Do you think 3 or 4 works best? I think, you know what, let's just go with 3 at first, and
All
zoom
right.
out.
So
And so I'll just copy my thing here 3 times, and
and
we can work on it.
I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
suggest a transcription convention of I don't know how standard this is, but it's a thing that I have seen in some whistle linguistics papers. So I'm going to suggest it a transcription convention of using capital letters to represent the whistled categories, which all
Okay.
of them are probably going to represent multiple phonemes in normal speech. That's just
Okay.
how whistle registers work. They will collapse distinctions. Um, so to keep it straight when we're working in the normal phonology versus the adapted roaring phonology, capitalized letters. So if we go with 3, then we'd have basically capital I, capital A, and capital U or capital O, whichever.
Okay.
Probably U, because that would match like the typical 3 vowel human system, I, A, U.
Okay. And this would be, I'm assuming E.
E, A, yeah, all 4 of those would be in one category.
Yeah. Okay. And get my IPA keyboard. Well, if it will work, what's going on here? Why am I not typing IPA? I don't know what's going on with my IPA keyboard. I'll copy a. Oh, did I? Oh, okay. Did I? Okay, whatever. I will do Xsampa for now. Okay, so these, and then the ooh. Okay, I know we're going to have the it's actually because I can't do rounded vowels, and and then
So these don't actually necessarily have to match up exactly with where all the vowels fall on the actual vowel chart, because we've got that harmony thing going on. So like the vowel matches up with so maybe
okay.
we say that those are the back pair, and actually gets realized as the oo category.
Oh, okay.
And then similarly, like o is phonetically a back vowel, but it's part of the harmony pair that contains the mid vowel. So maybe in the roaring register, we end up collapsing that together with ah.
Okay. Well, in that case, then we would end up with just. So the thing is, like, so you had 3 here,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about. Sorry,
Or
I'm.
no, so I would still put 4 vowels in the front category and then 2 each in the mid and the back, just
Oh, okay.
shifting, like swapping around which are which, in
Oh,
order to
okay.
represent that like these are in a harmony group.
Oh, okay. Put the sound in here, right? Is what you're saying. Whatever. I don't know what the excess of
Yes,
that sound
yeah,
is.
yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So so now we are going to go and I'm going to add a label track so that I can keep track of. We'll say um, we will. What? Uh, label. Yeah, this is the ah one. No, this make this one the e, the high front. This will be the ah one. I haven't really worked with Audacity much for a long time. Ah one, and then this is going to be the back one.
Ooh,
Okay, so
yeah.
so where do I put the pitches of each of these?
So then well, you're going to want to define what the frequency range for a sample dragon speaker would be. Um, just
hmm.
so some more like theoretical phonetics. Um, Individual human speakers have different absolute vowels for vowel formants because like
Mm-hmm.
our vocal tracts are shaped differently. Biology is messy and we're not robots. Um, And
Yeah.
similarly, when you transpose into whistled speech, like every individual produces a slightly different range of frequencies. So all of the frequency loci that define particular vowels are relative to a specific speaker. Um, and one of the differences between roaring and whistling is that whistling generally occurs at the upper end of and then
Wait,
above
what?
the typical modal speech frequency range,
What?
whereas roaring uh, involves a lowering of frequency. Um, so they're going to be working below the modal speech range.
Okay.
But regardless, you're going to want to just pick a frequency range for an example speaker to create examples with and say, okay, we're working in this frequency range, and whatever that is, the front vowel is going to be high, and the mid vowel is going to be in the middle, and the back vowel is going to be low. But you don't want it way at the top and way at the bottom because foreshadowing, we need to leave room for consonants.
Okay. Well, let me see what I can do then. So this one's going to be high, huh? Let me
Yep.
actually tools because I will manipulate with the time track when we do some
Mm-hmm.
constants, but I think it's probably better for me to manipulate the pitch of the whole sound for this part. So let's go with pitch and tempo, change pitch, and how about we go with like 5% up and 5% down, just to give
Sounds
us
great.
some numbers to work with, and
Yep.
then this one.
We'll just we'll just declare that this particular lion who got recorded for Wikipedia is working in the typical dragon roaring frequency range.
Well, I mean, it's somewhere above it because I did slow it down
Yeah.
to make the pitch lower.
Oh,
But
right. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, whatever. This happens to be the mid range, and then so the back vowels are going to be -5%,
Mhm.
and we'll just see how that sounds. That's an audible difference. Let me export that and let people um, hear that.
All right. So while we're waiting for it to export, I'll bring
Yeah.
up the next big decision. So for consonants, there's like two major categories of directions we can go in with
Mm-hmm.
organizing the consonants.
Yeah.
Um, and that is we treat all of the coronal consonants as a class and all of the non-coronal or peripheral consonants as a class.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can treat front consonants and back consonants as separate classes. So labials get distinguished from velars instead of lumped together.
Okay.
I'm, I,
Yeah. So, well, let's take a look at our inventory. We've got not a huge inventory, but a reasonably big one.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
So the major issue is like in the lexicon so far, or in the lexicon as planned, how much functional load do the contrast between and or ba and ga, or pa and ka, like how much functional load do those contrasts have? Because if it's really low, then you can collapse them together, no problem. But if it's higher, then we probably want to keep them and go with the three-way
yeah. Well,
consonant class distinction.
let's actually go into my notes and let's take a quick look at the lexical notes. So, uh,
Do we have a lot of minimal pairs at all yet?
I haven't really done too many minimal. Okay, so that's a close to a minimal pair, but not quite. If I can bring up my Obsidian, for some reason my Windows key search is not working. All kinds of things related to the keyboard are not working. Okay, there. Get Obsidian up. Um, but if you can look through here, uh, like we have some near minimal pairs. I'm not sure.
Near minimal pairs are good. Like we're going to be collapsing a lot of distinctions, so those near minimal pairs might turn into minimal pairs because of
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. Pippa. I don't see any genuine. So I mean, you have some short words like you have ga and ga. You might end up with in the future like a pa and a ba and a ba. We've got some simple words. Um, I guess we need to think about how we're already collapsing vowels when we're doing this. So I mean, these are going to become homophones. Although because this is a noun. No, this is intransitive and this is transitive. So that's not gonna be a huge problem most of the time. This amba and anda, they're gonna end up with a different vowel, which helps, but
But
they're gonna be
that's
close.
a labial versus a coronal.
Okay,
So we don't need to worry about
labial and
those.
coronal. So you're talking about labials versus
Labials versus velars.
yeah. So I need to think about um, like kaga. Do I have anything like a paga? I don't think I have a papa, peppa, but That will be distinguished on the vowels. Yeah. The thing is, I don't have a whole lot of I don't have a whole lot of words yet. So I'm not going to say it's not going to be a problem in the future. But I mean because like the yeah, I got EP, and I know I have an EG somewhere, right? I got let's see. So we can think about let's start off with oh, and by the way, I've got that let's listen, let's have everybody listen to the vowels and see. Yeah, so that's not a huge range that I've done. I could probably expand it a little bit more. Oh, Logan's not here. Let me see what's going on with Logan. Because I do not know. Okay. While we're waiting for Logan, I'll just mention some things that I was doing. So I had uh, um, I had to. Oh, I'm getting a message. Let me check that message real quick. I had to have a word for to kill. Okay. Okay. Logan is trying to get back on. So I had to coin a word for to kill, and I chose ipin for that root. And I decided so because the third person plural suffix here is nge, I decided that the m just goes away. So this is why in our example it's grapipinge. It instead of grapipimge, which would be a little difficult, I just ended up deleting that M. So that's another sound change that I'm going to have to apply. And then I'm probably going to apply a nasal assimilation. And I am still thinking about what I'm going to do when I do have some geminates that show up. So anyway, let's hear those vowels again. I want chat to hone in on this. We've got our three vowels. How well can you hear the difference between these? I can hear that pretty well, although it is a little bit close. I will say I do speak Chinese, so that helps me with perception of pitch. Yeah, I don't know
Okay,
what's going
I think I'm back.
on. Okay.
All right, I don't know why the phone kept saying that I was not online, even though I've got mobile data on Discord to tell you what was happening. But looks like I'm back on the PC now.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is weird. I'm seeing, okay, I need to look at I'm seeing two of you
That's probably because I
somehow.
was trying to join on my phone.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but
That's
oh
just,
well.
we're doing this live. That's what happens. Did you just hear
Yeah,
my Val recordings that I played there?
I did not. That's okay.
Let's
I can do them later.
yeah.
I'm sure I'll have more opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here, just here's the three vowels that we're looking at. The third one's a bit more distinct, but you can
Yeah.
hear all three of them. Let's
Mhm.
let's talk about consonants more. So, as I was
Yeah.
saying, I'm not entirely sure how much functional load the labials versus the dorsals are going to have against each other in the end, because I don't have that
Mhm.
many words. I can take a quick look. Let me just quickly check on in my Lexifer. How do I have the frequencies sorted out? I have. This is interesting. So I have coronals most frequent, and then
Mhm.
although I sort of mixed it up a little bit in between the plain and the aspirated. So I'm thinking, because of the way that is, that the aspiration distinction is carrying it somewhat in speech, but is
Mhm.
not that. I don't know if that will translate into our roaring.
It can. We'll
Okay.
we'll get to that.
Okay. Let's let's start with let's talk just about our what our plain consonants will sound like.
Yeah.
And
So
then mhm.
okay. So the the big distinctions are, well. Let's start with just uh, how single formant consonants are distinguished from vowels. Um, so the vowels are going to be generally slightly longer. They're going to have the maximum amplitude, and they're going to mostly stick to a single pitch.
Okay.
Um, Consonants are realized as alterations to the pitch at the boundaries of vowels, combined with some other stuff.
Okay.
But the major distinctions are they are quieter, they're faster, and with one exception, they move outside of the vowel space. So that
Mhm.
there's two features there. One, there's a locus outside the vowel space, and two, the consonant is moving through frequency space rather than staying still like a vowel.
Okay.
So the first thing to define is what are the available consonant loci, and you've got up to 5 options. You can have, and there's like there are specialized technical terms for these. Nobody watching the stream right now is going to know them, so I'll just
Mhm.
say what they actually are. There's super high, high, mid, low, and super low.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, and I haven't studied every single whistling register that's ever existed, so maybe this is out there somewhere. But to my knowledge, there is no natural whistling register that actually uses all 5 of those loci.
Okay.
Like ones that I know of will pick 3
Okay.
and maybe 4, depending on which speakers you're recording. So, like for example, Silbo Gomero, which is the most famous example, uses super high, high, and low.
Okay.
And Whistled Turkish uses high, mid, low, and maybe a distinction between low and super low, depending on which speaker you're interviewing at the time.
Okay.
So that would get you 4. But the one exception to it's outside the vowel space is if you have a mid consonant locus, then that stays inside the vowel space. And so basically the 2 broad categories of ways of organizing your consonants are either you treat the coronal consonants as high, either high or super high,
Mhm.
and you treat the peripheral consonants as low or super low, or you treat coronals as high, labials as low, and velars as mid. And
Okay.
velars including glottals.
Okay. So how do you differentiate a mid target like that?
By the amplitude envelope. So the
Okay.
vowel is going to be loud, and then if you just cut off the vowel without moving outside of that region of frequency space, then that corresponds to a mid-level consonant. And which mid-level consonant it is will depend on the shape of that amplitude envelope.
Okay. Now, you say coronals. Now, I have sort of
Mm-hmm.
a mixed group of palatal post-alveolar consonants here
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yep.
nya, ya, ch, sh, ya. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Historically, those are all derived from coronals, but should we define them as coronals or should we define them
Yes.
as dorsal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you would define those as coronals. So um, I think actually the Silva Gomero comparison might be most useful here because Spanish actually has the n distinction.
Uh-huh.
The plain N and the palatalized n.
Uh-huh.
Um, and Silva Gomero distinguishes the plain coronals, which are mainly alveolars, and the palatalized coronals uh, by the high versus super high loci. Um,
Okay.
so that's where that distinction comes in. You've got the low locus for peripherals, and then high for plain coronals, and super high for palatalized coronals.
Okay. So that means that I'm already like I could differentiate those if I wanted to, but
Yep.
they're often going to be treated the same way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, the high and low, are those still going to be above and below the high and low of the vowels?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever an individual speaker's vowel space is, it's not going to extend to the edge of their frequency range because, as I foreshadowed previously, you need to reserve space for those exterior consonant targets.
Okay. All right. So here's what I'm thinking is like if we separate these the these two categories,
Mm-hmm.
if we were to merge these two categories, then I don't know if it would. I don't think it would necessarily get a serious, too serious in sort of terms of functional load, but it is merging a lot of distinctions that happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, another thing
So
is
I've got do have a suggestion here,
Mm-hmm.
because the t and the ch, um, like those differ in manner of articulation, like
Mm-hmm.
at the not maybe not at the phonological level as you have them organized, but at the phonetic level they differ in manner as well as in place. We could use some of the envelope properties to try to distinguish those, um, while
Oh, okay.
merging them in terms of frequency locus, and then like just have the n and the y, or the k, yeah,
Yeah.
n and k and y, just those three, up in the
Okay.
super high
T
target.
and so you're saying like the and ja and and cha, we can have other ways to distinguish them because of the manner.
Yeah.
Probably ra and ya, we might be able to do something similar.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be collapsing all that much once we group all these together, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's see. Since I've already decided that Silbo Gamero looks like a good model, let me just quickly look up what the
Mhm.
collapsed categories are. I've got the document at hand. I just need to find what page it's on.
Okay.
Um, let's see.
Do you want to share
Somewhere
your
in here there's a
screen
chart.
so that people can see
Oh,
what
can
you're
I do
looking at?
that?
Let me
I
stop
yeah.
my screen share and see if you can share your screen, and they can see the Silbo Gomero document there.
Okay, if I can do that. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I found. All right, I found the chart. So let's see. Oh, there we go. There's a share button. Share screen. Okay, and I want to share Adobe. Where is? Oh, let's see. Is this only? Oh, Chrome tab and then Window is a separate option. Okay, I was like, Adobe isn't showing up on the list there. Here we go. Okay, let me full screen this.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So this table is kind of unfortunately formatted because it's split across two pages. Um, but this is a feature breakdown of Silbo consonants and how they map onto Spanish consonants.
Okay.
And so uh, they're using capital P for peripherals here, which collapses PK, so labial, anvelar, peripheral, and then uh, F and H.
Okay.
Um, and then T and S are collapsed, except sometimes there's a different T that's distinguished. Uh, I'd have to read some more stuff to remember why, like what determines when T is distinguished from S and when it isn't. Um, and then you've got B and G together. Again, peripherals are a single class in Silva
Yeah.
Gamero. Um, and then the plain L gets dumped together with D and th. Remember, this is Silva Gamero is spoken in Europe, so this is based on more Castilian Spanish, not American Spanish. So there is a the sound,
Well,
not
I
just
mean
a duh.
that's the voice the though that
Mm-hmm.
is spelled with a D. I don't actually see
Yeah,
the th. Um, but it's yeah. So Silbo Gamero is in the
yeah,
Canary Islands, by the way. It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
the people know. It looks like yeah and yeah are merged, which I mean
yep,
most Spanish does that anyway. I don't know why he called that out. And then so
yeah.
this had okay. I
And
see.
all the nasals are distinct.
Yeah. So there is a distinction in Silbo Gamero between the n and the nya,
Yeah,
but it's using an
it's the
optional feature.
so yeah. So here it's acute is what I've been calling high, and then sharp is their terminology for super high. Um, and so what they're what they're encoding here is that nya is distinguished from n because the palatals go super high, and you see that in the J column as well. Y and
Okay.
y are both marked as plus sharp. So all of those palatal consonants hit the super high locus. Um, it's marked as optional here because not all speakers necessarily reach it. Like some whistlers are, I hesitate to say lazy because like pronunciation variations aren't actually due to laziness, but they it looks like they're just being lazy and not bothering to get all the way up to the sharp when they
Yeah,
pronounce
yeah,
those, and then
yeah.
so then that extra distinction collapses. But
Okay.
it is there. It is possible.
Interesting. Okay. So we can hmm. So okay, I feel a little bit better now about just doing two categories. If you can stop sharing and then we can go back to my
Yep.
phonology so that we can
Yep.
see. And I'll just share my whole screen so I don't have to, because I flip around sometimes. Um, I mean, there will be some other ways of distinguishing, it seems like, based on manner.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
um we'll have to talk about how glottal stops are represented, but anyway, so we could merge these peripherals and the these. Let's let's think about, let's let me get categories worked up there. So we got T, and we can break these out later as we
Mm-hmm.
fiddle with the different um, features. But that's going to cover, I guess, the um,
So the high level groupings are going to be the outer two columns of your table are all one class, and then the
yeah,
inner two columns are all one class. And then we'll break them down further from there.
yeah. So we have NDT. I'll just do this in romanization since my
Yeah.
thing is not working, and also Enye J Ch
Ch,
Sh
ch.
Yeah, and then so those are going to be high, and then all of the other ones are going to be low.
Yep.
And then we get to so that's m, b, p, f, f. It's actually a bilabial, and then
Mm-hmm.
n, n, g, k, and h. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and okay, all right. So before I go and start like manipulating sounds, how do we further break these down? Because that's a lot to merge,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
talking
We're
about
not
how
going to have
manner is
just
going to
two
affect things.
consonants.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So, well, there's manner, and then there's other syllable level features to talk about as well. So uh, there are 3 or 4 possible manners that occur in whistling phonology, which get
Mm-hmm.
mapped onto modal manners in different ways by different languages. So
Okay.
some are gonna voicing distinctions. Some are going to preserve like continuant versus stop features using the same phonetic feature in whistle space. So we've got some freedom in how we actually map manners over. But your options for distinguishing consonants are basically, well, aside from the frequency loci, the other options for distinguishing consonants are all about how the frequency envelope, or not the frequency, we were just talking about frequency, how the amplitude envelope changes.
Okay.
So, for example, you can have interrupted consonants where there is a period of silence in the middle. And that doesn't necessarily correspond to stops. You might think, oh, well, stops have a period of silence. So obviously that's how it's going to transfer over. But again, referencing Silbo Gomero, the interrupted consonants actually correspond to voicelessness. So even continuants like fricatives, the unvoiced fricatives are going to be transposed over with a period of silence in the whistling envelope, whereas the voiced fricatives are not going to have that period of silence. Then you can have an abrupt cutoff. So, the vowel is loud and then it just stops. You get some silence, starts up again. Or you can have a gradual decrease. So it gets loud, it gets quiet again. And either it gets quiet down to a period of silence and then the next vowel starts, or it gets quiet, but the volume never totally goes away. It gets quieter, but not zero, and then it gets louder again.
Okay. So understanding me, so you're talking about on both ends of the vowel. So when I'm modeling these, I need to put it between two vowels in order to get the full idea of how it will work, right?
Yeah. And so then if you have a cluster of consonants, so two consonants with a vowel with vowels on either side, then the offset of one vowel is going to be mismatched to the onset of the next vowel.
Okay.
And if you've got clusters of more than two consonants, then I need to go and reread some more of the literature on Taschelheit whistling, because that's complicated and I don't remember exactly how it works. I think they just insert a whole bunch of schwas.
Do I have I think it's theoretically possible to get three consonants in a row, but I do not have an example of that within any word right now. So we're not going to have to worry about that yet.
All right. Well, we can come up with a theoretical rule for how to handle it later if we need to.
Yeah. So for now, we're just dealing with two consonants at once. Between words, you can definitely get three consonants in a row. But I don't know if that matters as much. Maybe you can just delete the last consonant and not worry about it.
Yeah. Or insert a schwa. So actually, that's something worth noting. It is possible, there is a concept of a schwa vowel specifically in whistling. Silbo Gomero doesn't have one, but Whistled Turkish, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, does. And a schwa vowel is basically if you isolate it, it cannot be distinguished from regular vowels. It will be interpreted as one of the non-schwa vowels in isolation, but phonologically it's distinguished as having an unspecified locus. So just if you need to have a sequence of consonants that don't have real vowels between them, then you insert a quote-unquote schwa, which is just a dip into the vowel space wherever it happens to fall.
Okay.
For a short time, and then you can go back to whatever the next consonant is.
So
if you have two high consonants in a low, it'll tend to be high.
Sounds a little bit like neutral tone. The way that neutral tone works, at least in mainland, it has like a mid target that it's going towards, but it just follows the same contour as a previous tone. It sounds like that's a similar concept. Yeah. So here we have our two categories, and so what you're telling me is we can have a lot of different manipulations of the envelope. But how are
Yes.
how are we going to implement this so that I can get my different get enough distinctions? Because so what I have is I have a nasal series, plain stops, aspirated stops, fricatives, and then
Mhm.
I have two approximates, which probably you can throw
Mhm.
those in with something else to
Yep.
save things.
Yep.
So how am I going to do with this?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would do, based on the Silva Gomero model, is break out the n and the t, um, the two, the palatalized nasal and the palatalized stop, and put those in a separate category and say those
Okay.
are going to hit the super high locus,
Okay.
and then we don't have to worry about them as much.
Okay. Um,
And then maybe as we talk through it some more, maybe we'll move some other consonants into the super high locus as well.
oh, okay. So
Um,
I will call this I will call this category C, and
mhm.
this is these are super high, and this is high, and these are low.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I was thinking the thing you have transcribed as J, not the CH.
oh oh well, that's both of those are sorry. This is romanization. So that's
Right.
a ch, and this is a ch. Um,
Yeah.
so should I um
Oh, the only difference there is aspiration. Sorry, I
right?
I thought there was something different going on.
No,
Um, yeah, I okay.
sorry.
I would put okay. I would put
Put those
You
together.
know what? Let's actually just put all of what you've got listed as post alveolars. Put all of those into the super high
Okay. So
to
we
start with.
do end up with three different categories then. And then
Yeah.
and that's probably as much as we should go then.
Uh yeah, we could go to 4 if we end up needing to break apart the peripherals, but let's start with that.
Okay.
Only break up the peripherals if we need to. So then we can look at manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking the next thing to do is to break out the aspirates
Uh-huh.
from everything else.
Okay.
And we'll say the aspirates
Okay.
are going to have, like, they're going to have either a period of silence if nothing else does. So they'll
Okay.
be interrupted consonants. Or we can make use of length and say, like, if we've got other interrupted consonants, the aspirated ones will just be longer, because that's exactly what aspirates are in the first place. They're just a longer period of voice onset delay.
Okay.
Um, and
So
I just gave you that whole thing about how it's not necessarily iconic. The transfer between modal stops and whistle interruption is not always iconic, and it isn't in Silva Gomero. But like,
uh,
if it can be, why the heck not?
okay. I'm changing my letter convention because of
Yep.
this. Um, but we end up with the aspirates. So these two categories are both high. These are super high. And then we have
Mm-hmm.
aspirates, and the aspirates are interrupted.
Yeah.
Um, and I need to also come up with make this a B and have a P, just because like that's based on my
Mm-hmm.
romanization, which
Mm-hmm.
is based on Chinese, but you know it's useful. I actually so uh, a little bit of like romanization talk here. I like the Pinyin convention of use the voiceless symbols for aspirated and the voice symbols for unaspirated. Not just because like English is this weird in between thing with the Fortis Lennis system, and it's easy for me. But also, from what I understand of L2 research, when you have just two laryngeal distinctions, speakers just hear that and then translate it into whatever their own laryngeal distinction is anyway. So it's going to be like the easiest thing for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I totally, I should have noticed this before. You don't have a voicing distinction, so we don't need to use interruption to encode the voicing distinction like Silbo does. So
it works it works for aspiration.
Yes, it
okay.
works for aspiration. That's perfect.
Okay. So what next? Because like that pulled up, that actually made a very like this is actually quite like
you've got a few that are unique already.
Which is great that I can have some unique consonants, but I've got a lot to deal with here.
You should note high interrupted versus low interrupted. Those are going to be interrupted consonants, and the other high consonants are going to be something else.
And then this is low interrupted. Okay. We might consider whether it's easier or harder to hit these like super high targets with roaring rather than whistling, because whistling takes a lot of articulatory skill.
I would think it would be easier because of the physiology of roaring to hit the low register. Like, not all animals that technically roar use this articulatory mechanism, but I'm pretty sure lions do, which is what we're using as our example here. And they actually have musculature to retract the larynx down the throat. So like, you're starting out with it being easier to go higher than it is to go even lower. Which I was not even thinking of at all. I was just like comparing to Silbo and saying, hey, they use super high and not super low, so let's go with it to handle the palatals. But that actually matches up really nicely.
That makes sense.
All the dragon has to do to hit the super high is relax.
That makes a lot of sense. That's one thing we were talking I mentioned earlier is like, I don't have to justify this scientifically, but it does make sense that some animals that roar have this mechanism to pull the larynx back, because that means it's more plausible for me to have an animal that can both speak and roar. They're not like separate mechanisms that would conflict with each other. Their wings won't carry them.
Let's quickly address the glottal stop, because there's two ways I can see of handling that. We could make it completely distinct pretty easily if it has a high functional load, but otherwise I'd just collapse it in with K.
Let's see. I mean, do I have a lot of so like, I mean, the thing is, so I have Ika versus Ia already, right? You've got Apa versus Aa. So if this is also going to be with K, then it's also that's also going to be an issue. And Agi, I think I have an Ai somewhere. So it's got a pretty high functional load. It's ending up being relatively common. So we may want to break it out in some way.
Okay, so then my suggestion for the glottal stop is that in terms of articulatory phonetics, it remains just literally a glottal stop. And acoustically, it would be its own thing, occupying a mid locus and just be the only consonant that's in the mid locus. So a glottal stop is just the roar is interrupted for a minute.
Okay.
Exactly, so like normal speech.
So I just put it down as mid interrupted. That's what you're
Mhm.
talking about. Is
Yep.
when they so like is going to be like something like that.
Exactly. Yep. Something like that.
Excuse my attempt at that.
You're excused.
So we've got that taken care of. I'm still a little concerned about merging all of these together.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I was looking next too. So I'm kind of thinking we see what manners to introduce to break up those remaining peripherals a little bit, and then see how that impacts the other categories.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Nasals are, so if we keep going with the Silbo analogy, nasals would be continuous consonants. So they would, and acoustically, that would mean there would be a reduction in the amplitude of the vowel, a shift to the next vowel locus during the consonant. Or no, sorry, I'm getting confused. That would be if it was mid. They're yeah, they're not mid consonants. We already have them classified as high and low. But there would be a reduction in the vowel amplitude as you're moving towards the consonant locus, but it would never go to zero. So you would still have some volume while you're in the high band or while you're in the low band, and then it would get louder transitioning into the next vowel.
Okay. And then other consonants, that means other consonants would actually fade into silence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
yeah, so the third yeah.
I make sure I get the distinction. Like interrupted is a sharp cutoff, and then other consonants fade. So like we're talking a three-way distinction between like and and something like that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, let me get a nasal category, and we go with the M and the N. That makes things a little bit better, and that's low continuous. Okay. And then that means that we could end up with unique N and unique Enya, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then
And
and end up merged, which
which is not a big deal.
still, so Spanish doesn't have the and so Silbo doesn't have to worry about it. If Spanish had then Silbo would merge those as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my velar nasal can come at the beginning of a word. So it's going to have a higher functional load than in a lot of languages. But I still think it's okay to merge, maybe, since it's just
so
two.
Here's my argument, because we talked about this previously. So far, all of your vocabulary that has a nasal stop or a nasal obstruent cluster has homorganic nasals, like they match.
Yeah.
So for all of those clusters, the distinction between different nasals is already neutralized.
Okay.
Which is going to reduce that functional load.
Okay. Yes. That does help. And the Enya, because of the way I didn't actually do a sound change for this. I just built it into the phonotactics, assuming that this happened before. Or no, I did do a sound change for this. These came from palatalized consonants, and the palatalized consonants, I imagined them historically coming from a cluster of the consonant plus the glide. And that means that they cannot occur in clusters either. So that makes it like probably even more of a distinction that makes it not necessary to differentiate Enya.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so here we've got 3 and 3, and here we've got 4 consonants still hanging out in the same category.
Make sure to write down the manner specifications for
all right.
all those
Okay,
new
so
categories.
that's a super high continuous.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
Okay, so now we've got low and high and super high that don't have manner specifications yet. So the B category is still the biggest one. It's got 4 instead of 3. So if we wanted to, basically, we need to. Well, we don't need to distinguish 2 stops and from each other and 2 fricatives from each other yet, because the whole thing was we're going to allow the peripherals to merge. So B and G are just the same thing, and are just the same thing. But we want to distinguish the stops from the fricatives.
yeah, I think that's useful.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's see. How do we want to do that? We've got continuous. We've got gradual decay with. Oh, have we used gradual decay with silence yet? We've used interrupted. We haven't used gradual decay with silence. So.
Oh, I thought that was like the
interrupted.
default, huh? So what's the difference between?
There is no default. There's 3 options. There's gradual decay with some silence in the middle. There's continuous, so you get the gradual decay of amplitude, but it never goes silent, and then there's just a sharp cutoff. And okay, which I'm looking straight at it, and I'm still getting confused about what we've actually used because it's not in the format that I'm used to looking at it in.
Let me make a
which
chart
is totally
for you.
not your fault. Okay.
I can try to make a chart for
chart.
you. So let's make a chart. Let's make one of these feature charts.
We've only used continuous versus interrupted so far. We haven't used gradual decay.
Okay. So let's get all our categories that we have here for the consonants. So we've got D, N, T, Y. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
And C, B, B, M. Let me insert right. M, P, and glottal stop on its own. And I'll add a column here. And another row down here. And so we've got, so let's see. I'll just put one thing for pitch. And so these are high, 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 super high, super high, Just super. Just do super. Because we're only doing
Yeah, because we're not doing super low.
Low, 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 and then mid. And then so and then continuous is all the nasals.
Yep.
Plus the glottal stop. No, the glottal stop is interrupted.
No, the glottal stop is interrupted.
Yeah. And then so we'll do interrupted is for the aspirates and the glottal stop. Well,
Yep.
that works out very iconically, actually, because all the glottal
Yep.
articulations are interrupted.
Yep.
So
nice. Okay, so we need to add a row for the gradual, and then figure out how we're going to further split those categories to make use of it in the best way, which does not have to be iconic.
So gradual decay. So I'm trying to figure out what the imagery is here. Like what is it when we don't have any of these modifiers on?
So that would be a different factorization of the feature space.
Okay.
Every consonant is going to be one of these because the reduction in volume is one of the ways that you tell we're not doing a vowel anymore.
Okay. Okay.
So we can use a different feature decomposition so that like there is a default option where just nothing has a plus in it, but I find those more confusing. So like everything is going to be in one of those three categories.
Okay. Well, that means that everything that's left over has to be gradual then, doesn't it?
If we don't split up the categories anymore, then that's why I was getting confused, because I was thinking what other distinction can we make to break those up, and there isn't one. Everything left right now has to be gradual, and so if we want to break those up more, we're going to have to potentially rearrange some stuff. Okay, so I did mention earlier that we can bring length into it.
Okay.
So we could have like brief interrupted versus long interrupted, where aspirates are long interrupted, and then we've got short interrupted to use for something else.
Okay. Right. So
like the if we wanted to keep iconicity, then we could have the regular, like the plain stops, be short interrupted and the aspirates be long interrupted, and then have the fricatives and approximants be continuous.
Okay. So in order to have that, okay. So then that would bring our okay. So then we would be taking this out. Right?
Yes.
We would have that's getting us pretty granular in some places.
Yep.
So we just have a J by itself, and then we'd have
BG would be together, and
let's
FH would be together.
Yeah, it would. So B G, and then F and H. And where else do we have anything? Okay, D, the D is by itself now.
Mm-hmm.
and S and R. And that
S and R get
means
merged. Yeah, sh and y get merged. S and R get merged. We don't have an L, do we?
no, I don't have any L.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do not have any L. So, I mean,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
that gets
Okay.
actually much more granular than I thought. I don't think I have anything where I have more than two merged,
Yep.
which is very handy.
Yep. So
Um,
we could even take out a distinction somewhere.
yeah. So let's 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 work with this. Let
Okay.
me add some columns and get that. Um, let me insert the insert below. We can have the long interrupted, and then and that's actually going to be this one, and then we need to add insert insert a row, one for S, and insert 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 one for the J, and insert one for the F. And so we've got a low, super, and a high.
Mm-hmm.
And then these are just a short interrupted. And where's my I have my my screen too big. Let me this. Okay. And this is oh, this is long interrupted.
Yep.
And then F is
F is
going to be
short.
gradual.
Or
Right. These are not interrupted, are they? They're gradual. Okay. Oh, I messed up.
No,
I've got some things backwards here.
no, you're right. The fricatives would be gradual. It's the unaspirated stops that are short
Oh, I
interrupted.
forgot
The
to
aspirated
take
stops that are
sh
long.
out. Okay.
Wait, why is sh coming out? Sh
Oh
and
no.
ya should be merged. Those
Yeah. Okay. Sh
those are
and
both
yeah are still merged.
super high. Um,
Okay.
super high
Those are going to be
continuous.
gradual. Okay.
Or yeah.
Gradual and continuous. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Uh,
Okay.
so
Okay. So
continuous is there is never any period of silence.
okay.
Gradual is you have a period of silence after a gradual drop off.
Oh,
So
okay.
actually, gradual and continuous should probably be together.
Mm.
Those gradual and continuous are related in the way that short interrupted and long interrupted are. Like
Okay.
with continuous, you never get to the silence. With gradual, you insert some silence. With interrupted, it's an immediate cutoff, and there's some silence because it's an immediate cutoff. Like the yeah, and then the long interrupted adds an additional bit of silence in the way
Oh,
that
okay.
gradual adds in a bit of silence to continuous.
I have things in a sort of a weird order, but I think now I have everything as unique. Um, okay, so these are not actually gradual. I mean, they technically are diminishing, huh? But they are um This is not actually gradual. This is not gradual. Okay. Okay, I think I got the idea. Anything that's continuous is also like sort of gradual-ish. Um okay. Yeah. I think I these two are confusing me a little bit, but yeah, so we have a lot of different distinctions now for the consonants. And I'm wondering if we could do some irregular pairings in order to drop features, like if we were to merge the j and the ch together, or um I don't know. It's not nearly necessarily going to drop too many features to just merge two of them, or is there? So we're using this to define the difference between these two,
I just noticed I was
and
muted. Oops.
these two. Oh, I'm sorry. I was like staring at my screen, so I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, I was trying to say if we ignore the glottal stop, then aside from that, we're maximally occupying feature space, which is like that's good. Um, but it means removing a feature is going to be tricky. Like, what can we remove that merges the fewest things together?
Right.
I think it might be useful to move on to another topic and then
Uh-huh.
see if we still want to reduce things. Because I want to look at all of the possible consonant clusters and how those would be handled.
Okay.
Because we still have more syllable level phonetic features that we can play with. Um, and like if you look at Pitahan whistling and humming registers, uh, they make extensive use of the amplitude envelope in ways that other languages don't. And yes, it's Pitahan. That's like controversial, but it's not the controversial part of Pitahan. Like if we're just talking about phonology, like I think you know I'm not I'm not relying on any of Everett's controversial claims about Pitahan syntax. It's just like phonologically they do this thing that's less controversial.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Um so on that front, I think let me check in my, because I have a Lexifer thing that shows me that can show me like what onsets that I have built, and it's going to be a little
and
hard to read,
codas.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
so I have for my onsets, you can have a nasal. So I actually, so here's the thing. Um, it is technically possible, according to this, to get the maximum a nasal plus an obstruent plus the trill. I have not ever gotten that in my
Mm-hmm.
generated words, so it's probably something that will really rarely come up. But it's technically possible. So that's one place
Mm-hmm.
where you could have three constants in a row. We could probably just delete one and be fine. The other thing we have is you can have a fricative and a stop, and I didn't really restrict that as any of these fricatives and any of these stops, and then a nasal and an obstruent again.
Mm-hmm. Um, okay. So I'm wondering if we can do something with combining the features of nasals and obstruents. Like the simple way to do this would just be to say there is a roaring schwa that doesn't exist in the modal form of speech, and it just gets inserted in between consonants where necessary.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But it might be interesting to see if we can do specific things with combining features of adjacent consonants for those initial and final clusters.
Okay.
So like if all of the, let's see, can you have an initial cluster of just a nasal and a trill with nothing else in between?
Let's see. How does that? Okay, the way I have it written, there has to be an obstruent there.
Okay, all right. So we can handle the initial clusters pretty easily then. If we just delete the middle consonant
Uh-huh.
because it's homorganic with the nasal anyway.
Okay.
So just like insert an initial schwa to so that you have something for the nasal to fall off of, and then
Okay.
enter the next vowel on the trill, and you'll know to mentally insert a homorganic stop in the middle when
Okay.
translating back.
Okay. Uh, should I always have a schwa before a nasal onset? Before a nasal onset cluster?
Yes. Yeah, because you'd need that to handle the regular obstruent clusters as well.
Okay.
And that would be realized as just a period of high amplitude at like near whatever frequency the nasal happens to be at, whether it's high, super high, or low.
Okay.
So it's whatever frequency you're targeting in the first place, not anchored to a specific vowel locus.
Okay. All right. So we that's useful. So this way we distinguish between the like the NPR cluster. Like if we have a
Mm-hmm.
oh, I do have one. Mbre. Right. Let's I did have one. Let me control F. Why is
Oh, can there
uh,
be a distinction between like MBR and MPR?
uh oh, there could be. There could.
Okay, but we can handle that by just how much silence there is in between the N contour and the R contour onto the next vowel.
Okay. So in that case, what are we deleting then? So mbre, we have
Yeah.
we
So
have mbre.
you're deleting uh you are deleting the extra vowel formants that would delineate a third consonant, but you're retaining the length feature of that consonant. So that's exactly kind of what I was thinking of with pulling some of the Moraic stuff from Pitahan whistling. Because so Pitahan whistling gets rid of a ton of consonant distinctions, like way more than Silbo does. It just collapses things all over the place. But it retains information in the Moraic weight of
Okay.
each portion of the syllable. So there's like 5 different syllable classes for how length is distributed among different components of the syllable that gives you enough contrast to still retain that. And so this would be kind of a similar thing. Like the length of time that you have in articulating the onset tells you whether or not this was originally a 3-component cluster And if it was a 3-component cluster, there's only 2 things that the middle component could be, and the precise length tells you which of those it was.
Okay, so let me work this out. First of all, the difference since we have a minimal pair here, the difference between mbre and bre, that's
Mhm.
just gonna be this one is going to have an interruption, a short interruption, and this one is not, right?
No, that's a different contrast. So mbre would start with a roaring schwa that gives you something to hang the nasal contour off of.
Okay, so you have the schwa at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do we still get the interruption?
And then and then you would have uh what's the features of the ra?
The bra is
Yeah.
it's merged with S, right? So
Yes.
it's just gradual high. So we're starting out
Okay.
low.
So you're starting out low, and you're going to drift. So the nasal is going to drift. Um, it's going to drift low and reduce in volume, and then it's going to fade out to go into the silence that's associated with the S/R, and then that's going to fade. That's going to pick up at the super high locus and fade in amplitude while moving back down into the vowel space.
Okay. So mbre, so it's gonna be like oh
So
like
if you had so if you
uh
had like
yeah.
if you had the vowel R vowel or vowel S vowel, then there would be a certain length of silence associated with that interruption. But because the first half of it is a nasal, which doesn't have silence, again, we're dealing with length, like quantity, in order to distinguish those cases. So these there may end up being some ambiguity in practice if the length distinctions are not super audible, but that you're going to have like half as much silence in an MR or in a BR. Wait, hang on. Can you get an you can't get an MR. You can't get an MR. So the so the MBR is going to go into silence, and you're going to get a certain length of that says, yeah, there was a B deleted here. You get more length to say there was a P deleted here. You can't just get the MR together, unless it was across a syllable boundary. So across a syllable boundary, you would have some silence, but it would be a shorter period of silence than if you just had vowel S vowel or vowel R vowel, because the tail of the nasal is using up some of that time that would be silent if it was an interrupted consonant. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me, but I also feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out my minimal pair then, because so so we're inserting the schwa, and we're going like oh ah, to be the mbre, but then just bre has a short silence, probably just from the previous vowel, and it just goes ah like that, something like that.
I think we're gonna need to insert a schwa before, and like for any peripheral cluster. If you've got a final cluster, there will need to be a schwa after it. If there's an initial cluster, there will need to be a schwa before it to get something for that consonant contour to hang off of.
Oh, okay.
And but like there will be a different initial contour for an M that then has a deleted B and an R than there will be for a B followed by an R.
So then that my bre is like something like that to get the interruption in there,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
hypothetically, I don't know if I have a word pray, but it would be like ah, something like that.
Yeah, with a longer pause.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I understand you now. And I can put this into words, and so nasal onset clusters end up with no interruption, but then the silence duration matches the value of the interrupted consonant. The nasal um, onset clusters with medial, with R, if they have an R in there. If they have a, if they don't have an R, then there is going to be interruption. Like I have gay, it's going to be
Yeah.
what un, eh, um
There's going to be an interruption, but it'll
yeah
be a short one because
gay
the nasal takes up half of the time that would otherwise be silent.
Something like that, because I have to go low for the K.
And then jump up.
Or a G actually. It's an unaspirated. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have distinctions that will cover everything. I'm not going to have time here, I think, actually, to do my translation challenge that I had for myself, but I can. Where did I even have that? This has a
you can transliterate it now. You can just replace all of the modal phonemes with the capital letter roaring register phoneme classes that they would fall into.
So this is going to be like B, S, and then P. That's the same. And then where does that go? That goes to the M. And I have
E.
B, I. Okay.
BI.
Okay. And
then there would be a schwa at the beginning. So however you want to notate that.
I'll just put a lowercase e there. Okay. This actually ends up being pretty long. Do I have time to just
so
try to figure it out?
In the last 5 minutes, let's address the next layer then, which is so we ended up with fewer things collapsed than I initially anticipated, so this might not be as big a deal, but there's pragmatic issues that actually make this a separate speech register rather than just a code, because you do get like homophone collapse, some homophone collapse still. And you have issues with just the context in which this is used, which is like you're not right next to each other speaking normally. It's over a distance. You're missing some of the body language. Although, again, dragons are huge and they've got wings, and like maybe you can see wing gestures from 10 miles away. I don't know. But you'll get some adaptations where you just take longer to say some stuff to make sure that it is comprehensible. Maybe you don't just say, for example, I don't know, the word bike, but you always bother to say the whole thing of bicycle because it's less likely to collapse with a homophone. Or, instead of take inspiration from actual dialectal mergers. You don't say pin and you don't say pen. You always say ink pen or sewing pin, and
Yeah.
add the extra modifier word so that there's more context to use.
Yeah.
And like in Shenantek specifically, I'm sure other whistle registers also do this, but I know Shenantek does. They have particles that only exist in the whistle register, which basically act like radio communication signals to say over and out, like this is the end of an utterance because you can't see me from where you are, so you can't get my pragmatic signals that like I'm done now, and you don't get the regular intonation signals either because that's all gone. So I'm just going to add this frequency contour at the end of the phrase that just means like over, I'm done talking, you can pick up now. And there's a bunch of those little things that go into altering the register to maximize comprehensibility.
Okay, so let me take a quick look up at things. Yeah. Do I have this even right? Okay. Okay. This is not going to be
recall
on my phone. I'm checking to see if this particular word is going to run into any issues with ambiguity with the inflection specifically because of
I was just thinking, I don't recall if this language is pro-drop or not, but like one of the things that you might do to resolve inflectional ambiguity is like always include pronouns, even if the normal register is pro-drop.
Yeah. I don't think it's actually going to be an issue because so this nge, that's the third person plural. It's not going to collide. It's going to end up a little bit similar to upe, but it's not going to be too much of a thing.
Yeah, you've got the length distinction for a cluster versus not a cluster.
Yeah. And we have the bay. But that's like nobody that's not going to make any sense because in this context, because that would number one, this will be still distinct. Number two, in this particular context, he's ordering people to kill, so he's not going to be ordering people to kill his own group, right? So that's not an issue. Yeah, I don't think that this particular thing will be an issue, but that is definitely something I will have to think about. The one thing is it's a pretty heavily inflected language. And it has a lot of redundancy because it has a tripartite system and indexing on the verb. So you're gonna avoid a lot of ambiguity with that. That doesn't mean that you're not
good.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that you're not ever going to have places where you need to disambiguate, but it might be like a case by case basis as I'm translating that I figure out. Yeah. All right. I think so. It's been 2 hours, and that's how much I stream for. And I don't really have time to work up this now, but maybe I will. I will do that later and whip up a quick video to showcase this roaring register, so that like people know can end up hearing what this would have sounded like. And that's been super fun. Thank you for coming on, Logan. And especially short notice, as I just sort of like got this idea in my head, and I thought, oh, I need to bring Logan on and do a roaring register tomorrow.
Yeah. And if you want to hear how a human wizard would whistle it, because we didn't end up using anything that wouldn't transfer to whistling, go ahead and send me a copy of the document, and
Yeah.
when I have free time, I'll write up the synthesizer specification for it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It might also help me. Maybe I can use that and I like practice with it and try to do it with my own voice too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, or whoever's still watching, and people in the future watching the stream after the fact. And I will work this up and whip up a quick video so that people know, like, so that people have like a more solid, a quicker like version of this. And with that, I'll just say happy conlaying. Okay. Okay.